Somewhere in a county office in this country, on an ordinary Tuesday, a clerk took a piece of paper across a counter. The paper was a deed. It had a name on it, a legal description of a property, a signature, and a notary stamp in the corner. The clerk looked at it, confirmed it had the right formatting and the right fee attached, stamped it, and filed it into the county's permanent record. That took about 90 seconds, and the moment that stamp came down, the public record of this country said that a house belonged to somebody who had never set foot in it. Now here's the part I need you to understand before anything else in this video, because everything else depends on it. That clerk did nothing wrong. That clerk was not lazy, was not bribed, and was not asleep at the counter. Because in almost every county in the United States, the recorder's office is not permitted to judge whether a document is true. Their legal job is to record, to check that the paperwork is formatted correctly, that the fee is paid, that the required fields are filled in, and then to file it. They are a filing cabinet, not a courtroom. They do not verify signatures. They do not confirm that the person named actually signed it. They are not authorized to. That is not a scandal that somebody needs to expose. That is the system working exactly the way it was designed. A design that goes back to a world of paper deeds, handshakes, and a notary who knew every family in town by sight. And in a world where a forged notary stamp can be ordered online for less than the cost of a dinner, that design is the single largest unlocked door standing behind the biggest asset most of you will ever own. Now, states have finally started passing laws about this. Real laws, this year, some of them within the last few weeks. 10 states now have a law written specifically about this crime. 3 of them passed just in the last quarter. And I am going to walk you through every one of them today. Because if you own your home outright, this matters to you more than to almost anybody else in the country. And I will show you exactly why. But I want to plant one sentence right now, and I want you to carry it through this entire video, because it is the thing that took me the longest to understand, and it changes everything about what you should actually do. Not one of those new laws, not the strongest one on the books, stops a fraudulent deed from being recorded in the first place. Every single one of them is about what happens afterward, which means the protection you are counting on, if you are counting on it, arrives after the door has already been opened. There is also something the television commercials on this subject are telling you that is not accurate, and it is not a small detail. It changes what you should actually be afraid of, and it changes where you should spend your money. I am going to get to that, and when I do, some of you are going to be relieved, and some of you are going to be angrier than when we started. My name is Kevin. Every week I go looking for the rule that quietly decides what happens to your money, and I bring it here before it costs you anything. Subscribe and turn on the bell, because this subject is moving fast. The laws changed 3 times just this year, and almost nobody is explaining what they actually do. Let me start with what just happened, because it is genuinely new. There is an organization that tracks state-by-state legislation on this specific crime, and they publish a scorecard every quarter. The most recent one came out just weeks ago, covering the second quarter of this year, and it found that 3 more states enacted new deed fraud laws in that quarter alone: Virginia, California, and Alabama. That brought the national total to 10 states with a law written specifically for this crime, which means 29 states still have nothing specific at all. Nothing. Not a single statute written for this, leaving those homeowners to rely on general fraud and forgery laws that were never designed for what happens when a false deed is already sitting in a county record. 8 more states have bills moving right now that have not passed. So the honest map of this country, today, is 10 states with a real law, 8 actively working on it, and 29 where a homeowner is essentially on their own. And I want to tell you about a woman I will call Merlene, because her situation is the one this entire video is built around. Merlene is 76. She lives outside Battle Creek, Michigan, in a house she and her husband finished paying off in 2009. No mortgage, no bank, no escrow account. The deed is in a fireproof box in her closet, and she has not looked at it in 11 years, because why would she? Last spring, a letter arrived from a lender she had never heard of, about a loan she had never applied for, secured against her address. Her first thought was that it was junk mail. Her second thought, an hour later, was that it was a scam trying to get her to call a number. It was 3 weeks before somebody suggested she call the county and simply ask what was on file for her property. And what was on file was a deed, recorded 4 months earlier, transferring her home to a name she had never heard in her life. Now, Merlene did not lose her house. I want to say that clearly right now because I am not going to build the next 30 minutes on a fear that is not accurate. But what happened to her over the following year cost her more than most people watching this have in savings. And it happened entirely because of a gap between when that paper was filed and when anybody told her it existed. That gap was 4 months. And the only reason it was not 4 years is that a stranger at a lending company sent a letter to the wrong person. Now I want you to notice something about how she found out, because it is the part that stays with me. Nobody in an official capacity told her. Not the county that recorded the document, not the state, not any agency. She found out because a private lending company, processing a loan application, mailed a routine letter to the address on the property, and the actual owner happened to be standing there to open it. If that house had been empty, if she had been in a hospital, or staying with a daughter for the winter, or in rehabilitation after a fall, that letter sits in a pile, and the 4 months becomes a year. And here is the detail that I think tells you everything about the state of this. There is no rule anywhere in most of this country requiring anybody to notify a property owner that the ownership of their property has been changed in the public record. Think about how strange that is next to everything else in your life. Your bank notifies you when a single dollar leaves your checking account. Your credit card company texts you if a charge looks unusual. Your pharmacy calls when a prescription changes. And the ownership record of the largest asset you will ever hold can be altered by a stranger, permanently, in a government office, and the default in most of America is that nobody has to say a word to you about it. This is exactly the shape of the problem I built the quiet rules around. Because Merlene did not fail at anything. She paid her house off. She kept her deed in a fireproof box. She did every single thing the generation before her said to do. What she did not know was that the county would never call her, that there was a free service that would have told her in a day instead of 4 months, and that a document affecting the largest thing she owns could be filed by anyone, at any time, without her ever being notified. That is what the guide is. It is the list of the things nobody tells you, in plain language and large print, for the assets that matter most. What to check, how often, what it costs, and the exact words to use when you call the office that has the answer, so that it is sitting in a drawer in your house before the letter arrives, instead of being learned across 4 months and a great deal of money afterward. You can find it at kevinexplains.shop. The link is right below this video, it is in the pinned comment at the top, or you can scan the code on your screen right now. And there is a 7-day guarantee, always. If it does not hand you something you did not already have, you send it back, and that is the end of it. Now let me give you the scale of this, because there are 2 very different stories being told about it, and the truth is sitting in between them. On one side, you have television advertising that makes this sound like it is happening on every street in America. On the other side, you have people who will tell you it is so rare you should not think about it at all. Here are the actual numbers, from the Federal Bureau of Investigation's own reporting. In a recent year, real estate fraud produced roughly 9,000 complaints nationally, with reported losses of about $173 million. Across a 5-year window, more than 58,000 Americans reported losing a combined $1.3 billion to real estate fraud schemes. Now, 9,000 complaints in a country with about 85 million owner-occupied homes is not an epidemic. Anybody telling you your house is likely to be stolen this year is selling you something. But here is the number that matters for the people watching this channel, and it is the reason I am spending 35 minutes on it. Of those complaints, people age 60 and older filed about 19% of them, and that same group accounted for roughly 44% of all the money lost, more than $76 million. Read those 2 figures next to each other. 1 in 5 victims, nearly half the money. That is not a coincidence, and it is not bad luck. There is a specific structural reason, and once you hear it, you will understand why this crime finds people your age. The reason is that this crime does not go after houses, it goes after equity. A house with a $300 mortgage on it is a poor target. There is a lender with a recorded interest sitting on that property, watching it, with far more resources than any homeowner. That lender is a giant obstacle standing in the way. A house that is paid off completely has no such obstacle. Nobody is watching it. There is no bank, no escrow, no annual statement, no institution with money at stake checking that everything is still in order. And who owns their home free and clear in this country? Overwhelmingly, people over 65, who spent 30 years paying it off exactly the way they were told to. So the very thing you were told your whole life to work toward, owning your home outright, with no payment and nothing owed, is the exact condition that makes your property the most attractive target on your street. I am going to say plainly what I think about that, and it is uncomfortable. We built a system where the only meaningful monitoring on a piece of property comes from a bank that has money at risk, not from the government, not from the recorder, not from anybody whose job is to look out for the owner. Which means the day you make your final mortgage payment and the bank releases its interest, you do not just lose a monthly bill, you lose the only entity that was watching that property on your behalf. Nobody hands you a letter that day explaining that surveillance just ended and it is now entirely your responsibility. There is no such letter. There is just a discharge document and a congratulations. Now let me walk you through how this actually gets done, because it is not one crime. It is 4 different ones wearing the same coat, and the response to each is different. The first one is the forged deed. This is the version people picture. Somebody obtains enough of your personal information to complete a deed form, forges your signature, gets a notary stamp on it by one means or another, and records it at the county. The second one is what the Federal Bureau of Investigation's Boston office issued a specific public warning about, and it is the quitclaim deed. A quitclaim deed is a legitimate, useful, extremely simple document. It is what families use to move property between each other, to add a spouse to a title, to move a house into a trust. It is simple precisely because it makes no promises. It says only, whatever interest I have in this property, I hand to you. No guarantee, no warranty, no title search required. That simplicity is exactly what makes it the tool of choice here. It is short, it is cheap, it is available at any office supply store or as a free download, and it raises no eyebrows at a recorder's counter because thousands of legitimate ones are filed every week. The third version is seller impersonation, and this one is aimed at a very specific kind of property. Somebody poses as the owner and lists the property for sale, usually to a legitimate buyer with a legitimate agent, working entirely by phone and email and a remote closing. The targets here are vacant land, rental properties, and homes that sit empty for parts of the year. Anything where nobody is standing on the porch to contradict the story. And this one is not rare in the industry at all. 1 in 3 title companies reported experiencing at least one seller impersonation attempt in a single recent year. The fourth version does not involve selling anything. Somebody records a false deed, then poses as the landlord and rents your property out to tenants who have no idea, collecting deposits and rent for months. And I want to say one more thing about notaries, because it is the hinge that all 4 of these methods turn on. A notary's entire function in this process is to confirm one thing, that the person signing the document is who they say they are, verified against identification in the notary's physical presence. That single check is the only human verification standing between a forged deed and a county record, which means every one of these crimes requires either a notary who was deceived by fraudulent identification, a notary who was careless, a notary who was complicit, or a forged stamp with no notary involved at all. And a notary seal is a physical object that can be manufactured. That is why Virginia went after the notary rules directly this year, and why I think that approach is one of the 2 that will actually matter. The rise of remote online notarization, which allows the whole thing to happen over video, has made this genuinely more complicated. It is convenient, it is legitimate, it is legal in most states now, and it also removed the one thing that used to make forgery difficult, which was standing in a room with a person who could look at you. I am not saying remote notarization should not exist. It genuinely helps people who cannot easily travel, which includes a great many of you. I am saying that a system built on a person physically looking at your face and your identification was quietly converted into a system built on a video call, and the fraud protections were not upgraded at the same speed. Now hold all 4 of those next to a single fact about who is targeted. Vacant homes. Properties where the owner lives far away. Homes owned free and clear. Owners less likely to check their credit or their property records regularly. Every one of those descriptions lands harder on somebody in their 70s than on somebody in their 40s. A second property inherited from a parent. A house sitting empty while somebody is in rehabilitation after a fall. A snowbird arrangement where a house is empty 5 months a year. None of those are mistakes. They are ordinary features of an ordinary older life, and each one is a line item on a target profile. Now let me give you the laws, because this is the part that is actually new, and it is the part that made me want to make this video in the first place. 7 states enacted what researchers describe as meaningful deed fraud statutes over the last 3 years: Texas, Michigan, New York, Illinois, Georgia, Tennessee, and Oklahoma. Then this year, 3 more joined them, and I want to go through what each of those 3 actually did, because they took genuinely different approaches and the differences matter. Alabama passed something called the Property Protection Act, and it is described as one of the most comprehensive deed fraud laws in the country. Virginia went a different direction entirely. Instead of writing new penalties, Virginia went after the point of failure itself. It established identity verification requirements for settlement agents, so the person claiming to be the seller has to actually prove they are the seller, and it strengthened the rules around notaries. Think about what that actually attacks. Every one of the 4 methods I described requires 2 things: a document that looks right and a notary stamp that makes it acceptable at the counter. Virginia is one of the very few states that has gone after the stamp rather than the punishment. California enacted a bill requiring statewide recorder notification, phasing in by next year, which means county recorders in that state will be required to notify property owners when a document is recorded against their property. And Maryland adopted criminal penalties for fraudulent conveyances and established a grant fund specifically for deed fraud prevention. So, 4 different philosophies in a single year. Alabama wrote a comprehensive statute. Virginia attacked verification at the front end. California mandated notification. Maryland funded prevention and criminalized the act. Now I want to give you my honest assessment of those 4, because they are not equal, and nobody is going to tell you which one is actually protecting people. The California and Virginia approaches are the only 2 that touch the problem before the damage happens. Notification tells you the day it occurs instead of 4 months later. Identity verification tries to stop the false document from being accepted at all. Everything else, and I mean this without any disrespect to the people who wrote those laws, is a better shovel for a hole you have already fallen into. Criminal penalties matter, restitution matters, enhanced sentencing matters. Making it easier for a district attorney to prosecute genuinely matters. But all of it happens after a document is already sitting in your county's permanent record with somebody else's name on your house. And that brings me to the sentence I planted at the beginning of this video, which is the central finding of the research I have been reading all week. Even the strongest state law currently on the books cannot stop a fraudulent deed from being recorded. Not one of them. Not Alabama's comprehensive statute, not Virginia's verification rules, not New York's enforcement powers. Because stopping it at the counter would require county recorders across roughly 3,000 counties to become verification agencies, with the staff, the technology, the training, and the legal authority to refuse a document they believe is false. That is not a small reform. That is rebuilding a 200-year-old institution in every county in America, and nobody has proposed paying for it. So what the states are doing instead, understandably, is making it easier to punish afterward and easier to unwind afterward. Which is real progress, it is just not protection, and I do not want you walking away confusing the 2. Now let me tell you about Alcide, because his situation shows what this looks like when the property is not the one you live in. Alcide is 69, outside Lafayette, Louisiana. When his mother passed in 2018, he inherited her house, 2 parishes over from where he lives. The family could not agree on selling it, so it sat. Alcide drove out every few months, checked the roof, ran the water, paid the property taxes every year without fail. That house has no mortgage. It sits empty most of the year. The owner lives an hour and a half away, and the deed is in the name of a man who does not check the county record because it never occurred to him that there would be anything to check. Read that description back, and it is not a house. It is a target profile with a mailbox. Alcide has not had anything happen to him. I want to be clear about that, because I am not going to invent a tragedy to make a point. But when I lay out who this crime finds, the honest answer is that it finds properties exactly like his. And there are millions of them held by people in their 60s and 70s right now who have never once thought about it. An inherited house nobody could agree on. A rental that has been empty since the last tenant. A lot somebody bought in 1982, meaning to build on someday. Every one of those is a property with equity, no lender watching, and an owner who is not looking. Now I'm going to tell you the thing the television commercials are not telling you, and I want you to sit with it because it cuts in 2 directions at once. You have seen these advertisements. A serious voice explains that criminals can steal your home, that your house can be taken out from under you, that you could lose everything you have built. Then a phone number appears. Here is the legal fact those advertisements leave out. A forged deed transfers nothing. It is void. Not voidable, not contestable. Void. From the moment it was signed, as a matter of law in essentially every state in this country. If somebody forges your signature on a deed to your house, they do not own your house. They never owned it, not for 1 second. You still own it. You have always owned it. Because a person cannot give away what they do not have, and a forger never had it. So the phrase, "they steal your home," which is the entire emotional engine of those commercials, is not what actually happens under the law. Now, before anybody relaxes too much, let me tell you why this is still one of the worst things that can happen to a person, and why I still want you to act on it today. Because the fact that you legally still own your home does not mean the county record says so. And the world does not run on what is legally true. It runs on what is written down in the public record. So what you actually inherit is not the loss of your house. It is a clouded title. A cloud on your title means the public record no longer clearly shows that you own your property, which means you cannot sell it. You cannot borrow against it. You cannot refinance it. You cannot cleanly leave it to your children. And if the person who filed that false deed used it to take out a loan against your property, there is now a recorded lien sitting on your home, securing a debt you never borrowed. That lien does not evaporate because the deed was void. Somebody has to go through a legal process to remove it, and that somebody is you. Now here is the number that made me want to make this video. Clearing a fraudulent title costs a victim, on average, somewhere between $50,000 and $150,000 in legal fees. $50,000 to $150,000 to prove in court that you still own the house you have always owned, that you never sold, that you have lived in for 40 years, and that the law already says is yours. So let me be precise about what the real crime is here, because I think it is worse than the version in the commercials, not better. Nobody takes your house. What happens is that a stranger, in about 90 seconds at a county counter, can create a legal problem that costs you 6 figures and 2 years of your life to undo, while you continue living in the house you own, unable to sell it, unable to borrow against it, and unable to pass it on cleanly. And I will give you my honest opinion. The legal system charging a 76-year-old woman $100,000 to prove she still owns a house nobody disputes she bought is not a defect in the process. That is the process. And it is the part nobody has proposed fixing. Velma is 73, in Kalamazoo County, Michigan. Her situation began the way most of them do, with a document she never saw. A false conveyance recorded against a home she and her late husband bought in 1979 and paid off in 2004. She found out because she went to take out a small home equity line to replace a furnace, and the bank came back and said there was an issue with the title. That was the whole warning. There was an issue with the title. And what followed was 14 months, a title company, an attorney, an affidavit filed with the county, certified mail to an address that did not exist, and eventually a court proceeding to quiet the title and clear the record. She never lost the house, not for 1 day. She slept in her own bed the entire time. What she lost was 14 months, a great deal of money she had earmarked for something else, and the ability to touch the largest asset she owns while it was happening. And the furnace still needed replacing the whole time. When I asked what she would tell somebody watching this, she did not say anything about the criminal. She said she wished somebody had told her the county had a free service that would have emailed her the day it was filed. That is the entire distance between Velma's 14 months and a 2-week problem. Knowing that one thing existed. That is what the Quiet Rules is built to be. Not a warning about a crime, because a warning does not help anybody. The specific, free, boring, unglamorous action that closes the gap for this and for every other rule I cover on this channel. What to sign up for and where. What to check and how often. What the process actually costs and who to call first if it ever happens. Written plain and written large in one place so it is in the house before the letter arrives. It is at kevinexplains.shop. In the description, in the pinned comment, or scan the code on your screen. 7 days to look it over. If it does not help you, send it back, no questions. Now I want to give you something almost nobody covers, which is what you actually do in the first week if this ever happens to you or to somebody in your family. Because in that moment, people panic. and panic in this specific situation costs money. The first thing to understand is that you are not on a clock in the way you feel like you are. Nobody is coming to remove you from your house. A void deed does not give anybody the right to evict you, and any attempt to do so runs into a legal wall very quickly. So do not do anything expensive in the first 48 hours because you are frightened. Step 1. Get a certified copy of the fraudulent document from the county recorder. Not a screenshot, a certified copy. Everything that follows references that specific recorded instrument, and you will need it repeatedly. Step 2. Report it to law enforcement and get a report number. Local police first, and then in most states the Attorney General's office has a specific channel for this, particularly in the 10 states with dedicated statutes. Step 3. File a report with the Federal Bureau of Investigation's Internet Crime Complaint Center. That is the reporting system those national statistics come from, and the numbers matter for whether your state ever passes a law. Step 4. Find your owner's title insurance policy from when you bought the home. This is the step people skip, and it is potentially the most valuable one. An owner's title policy, if you purchased one at closing, generally provides a defense of your title against covered claims, including forgery. That means the insurance company may pay for the attorney rather than you paying $50,000 to $150,000. Now, I have to be honest about the limitation. Not everybody has one. It is optional in most transactions. Many people declined it, and if you inherited the property or bought it a very long time ago, you may not have one at all. And a title policy covers you as the owner. It does not automatically resolve a lien recorded by somebody else. Read your actual policy, or have somebody read it with you, before you assume either way. Step 5. Contact a real estate attorney in the county where the property sits. Not a general practitioner, somebody who has done a quiet title action before, because that is very likely the proceeding you are heading toward. And step 6. In many states, there is a specific document you can record yourself, immediately, that puts the world on notice that the conveyance is disputed. In Texas, for example, there is a formal process where an owner records an affidavit regarding a purported conveyance, attaches the fraudulent document, sends certified mail notice, and after a waiting period can petition the court for judicial review. And in that state, there is no fee to record it and no fee to file the petition. The state deliberately made the paperwork free because charging a fraud victim to correct the record was recognized as absurd. Other states have their own version. Ask your recorder what an owner can file to dispute a recorded conveyance in your state and ask whether there is a fee. That single question, asked in week 1 instead of month 6, is worth thousands of dollars. So now let us talk about the services advertising themselves as the solution, because a great many of you have seen those commercials and some of you are already paying for one. These companies charge somewhere in the range of $15 to $25 a month. Call it $180 to $300 a year, every year, for as long as you own your home. Here is exactly what they do, and I want to be completely fair to them. They monitor your county's public records, and if a document is recorded against your name or your property, they send you an alert. Many of them also offer help navigating the aftermath if something is found. Now here is what they do not do, despite what the name suggests. Nothing gets locked. There is no lock. The word is marketing. They cannot stop a document from being recorded because, as I explained at the top of this video, nobody can. Not the state, not the recorder, not a private company in another state. What they sell is notification after the fact, which is genuinely valuable because notification is the difference between Velma's 14 months and a 2-week problem. But here's the part that matters to your wallet. Most major counties in this country already offer that exact notification, run by the county recorder's office, as a free public service. It is free, not discounted, free, funded as a consumer protection service by the same office that records the documents. San Diego County calls theirs Owner Alert. Los Angeles County calls theirs Property Alert. Cook County in Illinois has one. Harris County and Dallas County and Tarrant County in Texas all have one. Salt Lake County has one. Counties in Colorado, Georgia, Utah, and dozens of other states have one. Many of them run through a shared national service that a great many counties subscribe to, so even smaller counties often have access to it. And what you get is the same thing. An email, the day a document is recorded under your name or against your parcel, which is functionally the same alert the paid services sell you for $200 a year. So I will tell you plainly where I land on this, and I am aware that this is not going to make me popular with an entire advertising category. If you are already paying for one of these and it gives you peace of mind and you can afford it, I am not going to tell you that you wasted your money. Peace of mind is a real thing and it has a real value. But nobody should be paying $200 a year for a notification their county gives away, sold to them by an advertisement that describes an outcome, the theft of your home, that is not what the law says actually happens. Both of those things are true at once. The crime is real, the advertising is not accurate, and the free version does the same job. Now here is exactly how to set up the free one, and this is the single most useful 5 minutes in this entire video. Step 1. Open a search engine and type the name of your county, the word recorder, and the words property fraud alert. If your county calls its office something else, try county clerk or register of deeds or assessor recorder. Every state names it differently. Step 2. Look for something called property alert, property fraud alert, owner alert, property watch, or recording notification. Step 3. You will generally need your name exactly as it appears on your deed, an email address, and in many counties your parcel number, which is printed right on your property tax bill. Step 4, and this is the one people miss. Register every version of your name that could appear on a document. Your full legal name, your name with a middle initial, your maiden name if the deed is old, and your late spouse's name if they are still on the title. These systems match on exact text. A registration under one spelling will not catch a filing under another. Step 5. Do this for every property you own, not just the one you live in. The inherited house, the rental, the lot. Those are the ones most likely to be targeted and the least likely to be registered. And one important limitation you should know. These services almost always only cover documents recorded after you sign up. They do not look backward. So if you want to know whether something is already on file, that is a separate action, and it is a phone call. Call your county recorder and ask this. I would like to know what documents are currently recorded against my property, and whether the most recent recorded deed is still in my name. That call is free. It takes about 10 minutes. And for a great many of you watching this, it is the first time anybody has ever suggested you make it. Now I want to widen this out before I give you your checklist because there is a bigger point sitting underneath all of this. 29 states still have no law written for this crime, not because it is technically difficult, not because there is any organized opposition to protecting homeowners from forgery. Nobody is out there lobbying in favor of deed fraud. It is because this is a crime that produces a small number of victims who are, individually, devastated, and who are disproportionately old, and who mostly do not have the energy left after 14 months of legal proceedings to go organize a campaign at their state capital. 9,000 complaints in a country of 85 million homeowners does not generate the volume of angry phone calls that moves a legislature quickly. So the states that have generally acted because a local newspaper ran a story about one particular family, and somebody in that building read it. That is not a conspiracy. That is just how attention works. And I would rather you understood the actual mechanism than believed somebody was scheming against you. But it does mean something practical for you. If you live in one of those 29 states, no law is coming to save you in the next year. The free county alert is not one option among several. It is the whole plan. And there is one more group I want to speak to directly, because they are the most exposed people watching this and almost nobody addresses them. If you are recently widowed, and your late husband or wife is still listed on the deed alongside you, you are in a period of elevated risk, and nobody will tell you that either. Because a death is public, obituaries are public, probate filings are public, and a property where one of the two names on the deed belongs to somebody who has died is a property where paperwork is expected to move. A false conveyance filed during that window looks far less unusual to anybody glancing at it than one filed against a stable, unchanged title. I am not telling you this to frighten you during a season that is already hard enough. I am telling you because the fix takes 5 minutes, and it is the same fix as everything else in this video. Register your county alert under both names, yours and your late spouse's, exactly as they appear on the deed. And when you are ready, and only when you are ready, ask the recorder what is involved in updating the title. There is no legal emergency about it, but knowing what the process looks like is worth having before somebody else decides to move that paperwork for you. Here is your checklist. 6 things, and the first 5 are free. 1. Sign up for your county's free property fraud alert today under every version of your name for every property you own. Search your county name plus the words Property Fraud Alert. 2. Call your county recorder and ask what is currently recorded against your property and whether the last recorded deed is still in your name. That covers the backward look the alert service will not do. 3. Find out whether your state is one of the 10 with a specific law, one of the 8 with a bill moving, or one of the 29 with nothing. Search your state name plus the words Deed Fraud Law. It changes what your options are if this ever happens. 4. Pay attention to any property you own that you do not live in. Inherited houses, empty rentals, vacant land, those carry the highest risk and are almost never registered for alerts. 5. Dig out your owner's title insurance policy from when you bought the house. If you have one, it may cover defending your title against exactly this, and a great many people have one sitting in a closing folder in a closet and have never once read it. 6. If you are currently paying a monthly title protection service, look up whether your county offers the free alert first, then decide whether the difference is worth what you are paying. That is your call, not mine. I only want you making it with the facts. Here is what I want you carrying out of this video. Merlene did everything her parents told her to do. She paid off her house, she put the deed in a fireproof box, and the box was the last place anybody would look for the problem. Alcide keeps the taxes paid and the roof checked on his mother's house, and has never once checked the one record that says whose name is on it. And Velma spent 14 months and a great deal of money proving she still owned a house that legally she never stopped owning for a single day. Not one of them did anything careless. Every one of them was on the wrong side of a gap between when a piece of paper gets filed and when anybody tells the owner it exists. That gap is the entire crime, not the forgery, the silence afterward. 10 states have now written laws about the forgery. 0 of them have closed the silence, except the handful that finally required somebody to send you an email. So go send yourself that email. Search your county, the word recorder, and the words Property Fraud Alert. It takes 5 minutes and it costs nothing, and it is the only thing in this entire video that is genuinely in your hands today. The paper can still be filed. Nobody can stop that yet. But the 4 months can become the same afternoon, and that is the whole difference between an inconvenience and 14 months of your life. I am Kevin. Thanks for watching. Do not forget to check the quiet rules at kevinexplains.shop.